The 1970s saw some amazing innovations in the kind of motorcycles being produced in the market. However, some of these innovations would end up becoming very unpopular with the customers. In today's video, in no particular order, we'd take a look at 10 of the worst motorcycles of the 1970s. So, let's dive in. 10. Kawasaki H2 Mach 4. The Kawasaki H2 Mach 4, also called the Widowmaker, was a very fast motorcycle, but it had some big problems. Released in the 1970s, it had a powerful 750cc two-stroke engine that made it one of the quickest motorcycles of its time. However, speed wasn't everything. The motorcycle was known for being hard to control, especially for new riders. Its lightweight design and strong engine made it wobble at high speeds, which was very dangerous. The brakes weren't very good either, so stopping quickly was a problem. Another issue was its poor handling in corners. If you turned too fast, the motorcycle could lose balance. Riders had to be very careful or risk crashing. On top of that, it had bad fuel economy, so you had to fill it up a lot. The Kawasaki H2 Mach 4 may have been exciting for thrill seekers, but it was also risky. It is easily remembered as a motorcycle that was more trouble than it was worth. 9. Suzuki R5 Rotary. The Suzuki R5 Rotary was supposed to be a groundbreaking motorcycle when it came out in the 1970s. It used a special type of engine called a rotary engine, which was very different from the usual piston engines found in most motorcycles. Suzuki thought this design would make the motorcycle smooth and powerful, but it turned out to be a big problem. First, the engine was complicated and hard to maintain. Mechanics didn't know how to fix it because it was so different. This made repairs expensive and frustrating for owners. Second, the motorcycle was heavy and didn't handle well, especially on curvy roads. Riders found it hard to control, which made it less fun to ride. Another problem was its terrible gas mileage. The RE5 drank fuel quickly, and with gas prices rising in the 1970s, this made it very expensive to own. Lastly, the motorcycle didn't sell well, so spare parts became hard to find. Even though it looked cool, the RE5's flaws made it one of the worst motorcycles of its time. 8. Honda CB350F. The Honda CB350F was introduced in the 1970s as a small four-cylinder motorcycle. At first, it seemed like a cool idea because it had a nice design and promised smooth performance. But in reality, it had a lot of problems that made it one of the worst motorcycles of its time. The biggest issue was its engine. Even though it was a four-cylinder, it didn't produce much power. Riders expected a lot more speed and performance, but the CB350F felt slow and underwhelming. It weighed too much for a motorcycle its size, making it hard to handle, especially for new riders. The motorcycle also had poor braking, which made it dangerous in emergencies. Another problem was the cost. It was expensive to buy and maintain, especially since the engine needed frequent repairs. People felt they weren't getting good value for their money. Even though Honda tried to make a reliable motorcycle, the CB350F ended up being a disappointment that couldn't match its promises. 7. BMW R90s. The BMW R90s was supposed to be a cool and fast motorcycle in the 1970s, but it had several problems that made people unhappy. While it looked stylish with its sporty design and unique orange paint, it had issues that made riding it frustrating. First, the motorcycle's handling was tricky. Riders often felt it wobbled at high speeds, which could be scary. This was because the frame wasn't strong enough to handle the powerful engine. Second, the motorcycle had poor brakes. For a motorcycle that could go fast, stopping it safely was a big challenge. The brakes were unreliable, especially in wet conditions, which was dangerous. Another problem was its reliability. Riders complained that the motorcycle had frequent mechanical issues, such as electrical problems and oil leaks. These problems meant owners spent more time and money fixing it instead of enjoying it. While the BMW R90s had potential, these issues made it one of the most disappointing motorcycles of the 1970s. People expected better from BMW, and this motorcycle failed to deliver. 6. Moto Gozi V7 Sport. The Moto Gozi V7 Sport, released in the 1970s, looked cool with its sporty design, but it had many problems that made it a bad motorcycle. One of the biggest issues was its heavy weight. This made it hard to handle, especially for riders who wanted a quick and nimble motorcycle. It also had a clunky gearbox, which made shifting gears frustrating and slow. Riders often complained that the motorcycle felt outdated compared to other motorcycles of the time. The engine, while powerful, had reliability issues. It wasn't uncommon for the motorcycle to break down, leaving riders stranded. Maintenance was also a hassle, as parts were hard to find and expensive to replace. The V7 Sport's suspension wasn't great either, making the ride uncomfortable on bumpy roads. Despite its good looks and early promise, the Moto Gozi V7 Sport failed to deliver the smooth, fun experience riders expected. If you had to pick just 3 motorcycles from the above list as the most troublesome, which would you choose and why? Drop your dream trio in the comments below. 5. Benelli 750 SE. The Benelli 750 SE was a motorcycle from the 1970s that looked cool but had many problems. It was the world's first production motorcycle with a 6-cylinder engine, which made it sound impressive. However, this engine turned out to be one of its biggest problems. It was complicated, heavy, and didn't offer much more power than smaller, simpler motorcycles. This made it hard to handle, especially for riders who wanted a smooth and fun ride. Another issue was its reliability. The 750 SE often broke down, leaving riders frustrated. The parts used weren't very high quality, and finding replacements was difficult and expensive. This made owning one a headache. The design of the motorcycle also had flaws. It was bulky, which made it hard to ride in tight spaces or on winding roads. Riders complained that it wasn't comfortable for long trips either. While the Benelli 750 SE had an impressive idea behind it, it ended up being more of a disappointment than a success. 4. Kawasaki KZ400. The Kawasaki KZ400 was supposed to be a simple and affordable motorcycle for riders in the 1970s, but it turned out to have many problems. One of the biggest issues was its engine. The 400cc twin-cylinder engine was underpowered, meaning it didn't have enough strength to go fast or handle well on highways. Riders complained that it felt sluggish and made strange noises when running. Another problem was its build quality. The parts used to make the KZ400 weren't very durable. Things like the exhaust pipes and frame rusted quickly, even if the motorcycle wasn't old. The vibrations from the engine also made screws and bolts come loose, so riders had to constantly tighten them. The design wasn't great either. The KZ400 looked plain and boring, especially compared to cooler motorcycles of the time. Its handling wasn't good, making it hard for riders to take sharp turns or stop quickly. 3. Suzuki GT550. The Suzuki GT550, also called the Indy, was a motorcycle from the 1970s that had a lot of problems. At first it seemed cool because it had a 3-cylinder, 2-stroke engine, and was meant to compete with other popular motorcycles like the Kawasaki H1. But once people started riding it, they noticed big issues. One major problem was its weight. The GT550 was very heavy for its size, which made it hard to handle, especially for newer riders. It felt clumsy when turning corners or riding in traffic. The engine also didn't perform as well as people expected. It was slower and less powerful than similar motorcycles of its time, making it feel outdated and boring. Another issue was the fuel economy. The GT550 burned through gas quickly, meaning riders had to stop often to refuel. On top of that, its build quality wasn't great, and parts broke easily, leading to expensive repairs. Overall, the Suzuki GT550 was a disappointment. While it tried to be a great motorcycle, it ended up being too heavy, underpowered, and unreliable. 2. Yamaha XS500. The Yamaha XS500 seemed like a cool motorcycle when it came out in the 1970s, but it turned out to be a big letdown. On the surface, it had a great design and promised great performance, thanks to its 500cc twin-cylinder engine. However, riders quickly discovered its many problems. One major issue was its engine. Yamaha used an advanced design with a 4-valve head, but it wasn't reliable. The engine often overheated, leading to cracks in the cylinder head. This made it hard to trust the motorcycle for long rides. The cam chain tensioner, which is supposed to keep the engine running smoothly, also caused trouble. It failed so often that riders had to fix it repeatedly. The XS500's carburetors were another headache. They were hard to tune and caused poor fuel efficiency and rough performance. To make things worse, the motorcycle's electrical system was unreliable, leading to frequent breakdowns. In the end, the Yamaha XS500 became known more for its problems than its potential. Many riders avoided it, and it remains one of Yamaha's biggest disappointments from the 1970s. Honda CB500T. The Honda CB500T, released in the 1970s, was one of the worst motorcycles of that decade. While Honda is known for making great motorcycles, the CB500T didn't live up to its reputation. First, it had a small, underpowered engine. The 491 cubic centimeter twin-cylinder engine just didn't give riders enough speed or power, making it slow compared to other motorcycles in its class. It also had a strange design, with a bulky and heavy frame that made it hard to handle, especially for new riders. The motorcycle was uncomfortable to ride for long distances because of its stiff suspension and hard seat. Many riders found it difficult to control, especially when cornering or riding on rough roads. The CB500T also had a reputation for poor reliability. It wasn't unusual for parts to break down, leaving riders frustrated. While Honda tried to make it affordable, the motorcycle's performance and design were big letdowns, making it one of the worst motorcycles of the 1970s. So, there you have it. Our list of the 10 worst motorcycles of the 1970s. If you loved this video and would like to learn more from the definitive channel on the automotive industry, subscribe to this channel today. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.